Hello, very good evening to JavaScript's online lecture series. My name is Dr. Shan Bhatti, and today basically we're going to talk about conditional statements, if-else statements, switch statement, and nested if-else statements. Conditional statements are statements that we use within JavaScript to make some conditional decisions based on parameters, based on various different conditions, based on logical and conditional operators. If you're here for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe my channel so that you receive the updates on all these lectures. Let's begin. Now, conditional statements are basically statements that allow your program to make correct decisions and perform the right actions. JavaScript supports various different types of conditional statements, such as if statement, if-else statement, and if-else statement, or sometimes also known as nested if-else statements. If statement. The if statement is the fundamental control statement that allows JavaScript to make decisions, or more precisely, to execute statements conditionally. This statement has two forms. First being if, and we write expression in the brackets, and then we give a statement. In this form, expression is evaluated. The resulting value is true, statement is executed. If the resulting is false, the statement is not executed. This expression is basically where we make using the conditional operators or the logical operators. We remember we discussed greater than, equal to, not equal to operators. So we use two operands or values or data and we compare their behavior using the conditional statements. Those conditional statements then yield a result in form of true or false, which is required by the if expression. If always requires an answer in form of true or false. So the conditional operators that we had discussed previously use those operators and then give us a result in form of true and false. If then reads that true and false statement and based on that decides what needs to be executed and what not. So if condition becomes true, the statement gets executed. If the condition becomes false, nothing happens. The statement doesn't get executed and the next thing goes on. JavaScript syntax requires a single statement after the if keyword and a parenthesis expressions, but you can use statement block to combine multiple statements. For example, if you are going to use multiple statements, we give if, give expression using conditional operators, then we start a block, give multiple statements that need to be executed within that if block if the condition is true, and then we close the block. If-else statement. The second form of if-else statement, if-else or the conditional statements is what we call if-else clause. That is executed specifically when the condition within the expression becomes false. Okay. So for example, we write a statement such as if expression. The expression is basically again the conditional statements that we write using the conditional operators. We will show you a demonstration. Then statement. But what happens if the condition becomes false? What if the expression that we write inside the if it becomes false? In that case, else is executed. Else basically again is a keyword reserved word within our JavaScript, which basically means that if the condition from the if block is false, just execute the else statements or the statements that are under the else. This form of statement executes statements 1 or if the expression is true, and executes statement 2 if the expression is basically false. Similarly, we can create what we call nested if-else structure. By nested if-else structure, we mean we have if, we have else, we have if, we have else, we have if, we have else. Or in other words, we have nested form of if-else, 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 if-else. So if within one if-else, there is another if-else, and then there is another if-else, and then within those we have another if-else. And this hierarchy can go as long as you require. So for example, we have expression 1, if expression 1. If this expression becomes true, everything becomes ill-readable. This is no need of processing. Okay. So if the expression is true, the statements are executed and the block ends and everything comes out. Then the rest of the code is not executed. But in case if expression in first if becomes false, then it goes inside the else, because else is only executed when the first if becomes false. If the expression here yields the result false, then come here and execute this else. Once it comes inside this else, it again has another if inside it. So else now evaluate another condition. So if the first if becomes false, what should we do? We come here into the else and now let's evaluate another condition. So in that case, another second if is evaluated. If this if becomes true, the statements within this block are executed, and then the control just goes outside and the remaining block is not executed. However, if this expression is again false, then the third else is executed. And within the third else, we have third if condition. So again, there is another if condition within it. So if this becomes true, the statements are executed and the block goes outside. However, again, if this becomes false, now the fourth else is executed. In this case, there is no else and the final statement is executed and the block goes. So this is an example of nested if-else structure, where if, else, within this else we have another if, within this if we have else, and then again we have if. So the structure follows if-else, if-else, if-else basic structure. This is what we refer to as nested if-else structure. Else if is, there is nothing special about this code. It's just a series of if statements where each if is a part of else clause. Okay. If the previous statement is true, then this else clause will not be executed. If the previous statement is false, only then the next if else would go. The statements are executed based on the true conditions. If none of the condition is true, then the last else block is executed. Then the third major conditional statement that we have available is called the switch statement. Sometimes in order to accommodate complex if else, if else, if else, if else, it's very difficult to manage and follow the hierarchy. However, what we do is we follow something called switch statement. Switch, it behaves like a multiple if else, multiple if else, multiple if else. But you can use it in a more simplified manner. You can use multiple if else and if else statements as the previously learned to perform multi-way branches. However, this is not always the best solution, especially when all of the branches depend on the value of a single variable. So you can use a switch statement which handles exactly the situation, and it does more efficiently than repeated if else, if else, if else statements. The basic syntax of switch statement is to give an expression to evaluate, and several different statements are used that are executed depending on which statement matches the expression. Okay, so for example, we use a switch clause. Again, switch is a keyword, reserved word in JavaScript. We don't use it as a variable name. Then we give it expression. This expression is basically a variable value. It is not a regular expression that we have used in previous if else structure. This is just a regular value. So we give it a single value. This value is now evaluated based on each of its case. So sometimes it is known as switch case statements as well. So what switch has, it's a switch statement. It contains an expressional value, block start, block close. Within this we have a case which has a certain value. We have a case which has certain value. We have a case which has certain conditional value. You can write as many cases as you want. What we do is we compare this switch equals to condition 1. If this becomes true, the statements are executed. If expression evaluated with condition 2, the statements are executed. If this expression is matched with the third case, the statement is executed. In each of the case, if the condition becomes true, the statements are executed and then the break statement follows. A break statement indicates that just break it here, do not read the remaining code. So if, for example, I use the first expression, if this expression is true, then we just execute the statements with this condition and break it. In that case, the remaining cases are not executed. Hope it explains a little theoretical background. Let's go back into the code and execute this thing in practical. Let's begin and do some exercises of if else statement. The first being, for example, let's use the if else statement. So in this case, I come into my JavaScript code and let me just save this, and we give a script tag, we give it a type which is basically text / JavaScript, so it knows that we are doing JavaScript coding. In this case, we specify now Java. So for example, we have variable age is equal to 40 semicolon. Now we use if statements. Okay, if block start, block close. Now if there's a single statement, we don't need to write a block, but if there are multiple statements, then we need to write or specify the block. Okay, so in this case, we give if bracket start, bracket close. Now here the expression comes. Now expression can be, for example, age is less than 50. Okay, now again, 50. Now this is what we call conditional operator, which is less than, greater than, equal to, not equal to, different things. In this case, we have used a less than operator. If such is the case, then what we should do is we go into document, document dot write, right, and I can say bracket age is less than 50. Okay, semicolon. Now once we execute this, what should happen, that we took a variable and we compared this variable's value with a predefined value 50. Okay, if this condition becomes true, execute this statement. So we save it and we get age is less than 50. Okay, because we have 40. So what if I make this 60 now? Control S. As soon as I press S, now it says nothing. Okay, why there is nothing? Because if this condition becomes false, there is no other thing that we need to specify. Okay, there's nothing here to do. Okay, so in this case, now age has become 60. This, it came here, evaluated the condition, age is less than 50. The condition is false. Because the condition is false, this statement doesn't get executed. There is nothing to print. That is why we write something called else. If this is the case, now write document dot write, for example, age is greater than 50. Okay, save it. Now the age is greater than 50 because we gave it 60. What if again we give it 30? Press S, age is less than 50. What if we gave it, for example, 78? Age is greater than 50. So if else basically evaluates the condition based on whatever operator we use. In this case, let's make it greater than. Okay, age is greater than 50. Control S, age. Now what happens is less than 50 because again we have switched the condition. So let's just change the word greater here and let me use the less here. Sorry, less than here. Okay, so now once greater than is true, it will execute greater than. So greater than is executed. So for example, now I make it 0. Control S, it is less than 50. Okay, what if I give it exactly 50? Control S, now the condition is less than 50. See, this one, less than 50 is executed because it is 50. So here the condition is evaluating age is greater than 50, not equal to, greater than. If it is 51, now it should execute greater than 51. But once it is 50, it creates a problem. It's less than 50. So here that is why sometimes we use an operator called equal to. Now it means that equal to and greater than 50. So if it is equal to and greater than 50, now the condition becomes true. Okay. Similarly, we can use less than as well. If you even use less than, greater than what we have now. Okay. If I save it, we have no output. That's because when we write here, we write the equal sign here. So it's less than equal to what we call the operator. Okay. So this is simple, what we call greater than if else statements that we execute. Okay. So in this case, we have this function available. Now we can use this input in multiple different ways. We can take any value and we can compare whether this using if else statements. Similarly, you can write if else and then you can write if else here as well. So if, and we can specify more statements. So if age is, for example, oh, in fact, let's just make a program called mark sheet. That would be fine. Okay. So for example, let's just come back here and we can, in fact, let's do one thing. Okay. Let's come back here, input, and we can say, oh, in fact, let's just make this in cool way. Form, let's just make a form. Okay. And form, let it be name is equal to mark sheet. Marks, in fact, that should do the trick. And I think let me just close this form. Within this form, let me create something called import, and let's just make it type type is equal to number. So the user always enters the number. Again, this is supposed to be within inverted quotation marks. Okay, and then there is something called name, and this can be again mark marks. I think let's just make this mark sheet, and this becomes marks. Okay. So this is my input value, and then I can give another input, and this the type can be, for example, button, and then the name can be button. Okay, check. No, yes, check. Okay, and the value of this can be, value basically means what appears on your button. So here again I can write check, 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 check grade. grade. Okay, similarly here I can give an h1 and I can say check check your marks grade. Control S, and we have this field available. Let me just delete this input. Control S, and we have this form available. Okay, so we just created a simple form. I think let me just close this with marks available. Now what I want basically is that when I create and when I use this method, it calculates this data. So I can write within my script basically a function. So we create function and name is check check grade, check grade, and bracket start, bracket close. Okay, within this check grade I can give variable value, for example my marks. Now because I've declared marks here, this will behave like a local variable. Okay, so I don't need, for example, these things, so let me just delete this for now, and in fact this value as well. Okay, so we have function check grade. What should it happen? Once we give it certain value, it should check that if condition, okay, if your marks are less than 40, okay, what should you do? You write document.write write bracket start, bracket close, and then we can give inverted quotation marks. Here I write h2 and I can give a style is equals to bracket start, but because I'm using style within my quotations, I need to give another quotations. So instead of double quotes, I will use a single quotation mark. So quotation within a quotation, you will not work within a JavaScript. We have talked about this. If you need to write quotation within quotation, just give it, for example, single quotations. That should do the trick. So in this case, let me use green or let me use red. Okay, red, and that should do the trick. And then I come here and I can say plus, if it is less than 40, it can be, for example, D grade. Okay, so you got a D grade. Yeah, that should do the trick. And backslash h2 backslash control S. Now we have created a function. Let's just test this function for now. So I have a button, I have a value available already with me. If I come back here and in fact reduce this, I think I've increased the font size so you can read it. Let me just increase the font size even for more so that's more readable, because that's a complaint I've been getting. So I've created a simple form. I've written a function here. I have a button here. On this button, again, inside this button's closing marks, I will write something called onClick event. We will be talking about various different events in HTML5 in next classes. So onClick event, I will basically call as check grade event with marks value. Okay, so I need to call this check grade button value. So if I come here and make it, for example, give it a value, click on check, nothing happens. Okay, that's because one thing, we have given onClick check grade this method, but we have not passed it a particular value. So now we need to pass it a value. Now this value is supposed to be form field. So I think the better thing we can do is, if I come back here, if I delete this marks here, and let me use a variable marks here, okay, and is equals to, and if I maximize this so we can write it and you can understand it in a better way. So if I come here, I write document.forms, okay, because we have created a form and now we need to read the, oh sorry, where's it going? Let me just bring it here. So close here. Because we have created a form and we need to read the data of a form. So how do we do that using JavaScript? We come here and let me read that. So we do document.forms and then we give it double quotation marks like this. So basically this now means that a form contains many elements. So we said that go inside a document, there's a form. Inside a form, there is an array element that has a name called marksheet, okay, which we gave here, the form name. Within this form name, there is a second array, which is the name of its component, which is marks. Okay, this marks here. Then we apply a dot operator and then we connect its value. So we say read the value of marks, which is a text field, which inside a form field, inside a document field. Okay, so document basically is an object. We will be talking about document objects in later classes. So go inside a document, which is basically your web page. Inside this web page, there is a form. That form name is marksheet. So there can be multiple forms as well. So form that has a name called marksheet, read that marksheet form. Inside this marksheet form, there is a marks text field. Read the marks text field. Once you read the marks text field, get its value, whatever value is, and then store that value inside the marks variable. Now we can check this condition. So if I press S and come back here, and for example, if I give 23, we get a D grade. Perfect. Okay. Now what has happened here is that it has generated on a new page because we have written on this document.writeLN. So in order to reduce that, what we can do is we can give a document.innerHTML. We can read that. Okay. So I can say, for example, let me give outside a form, there can be a paragraph, and then I can give it an ID is equals to res result. Okay, result result. Save it here, and then instead of writing this code, we can write, for example, come here, document dot get element by id, and once you do that, inside it there is an element called result. Okay, so fetch this result, and then inner HTML of that result is equals to this color can come here. So this string can be Control X, and I can set this string here, semicolon, and then let me just delete this. So what we did now is that we created a paragraph tag inside it. Because it's inside a script function, it doesn't know which document you're talking about, so it generates the output on a new document. So in order to generate the output on the same document, we created a paragraph tag, and we gave no text information inside it, we just created a result ID. Now we said that go inside a document, get element by a result ID, get an element that has ID called result, go inside it and inner HTML, access its inner HTML, and then replace it with this particular string. So we replaced it with this string. So if I give 31 marks, check grade, I got a D grade. In fact, it should not be a D grade. Okay, let's just create this thing. Okay, it should actually be, if I come back into my code now, at least it's now working. You get basically F grade, okay, which is fail. F grade, which is fail. So if I can write here FAIL, fail. Okay, so now if I come here and for example, if I give just 32 marks, check grade, I get fail grade. That means this is basically working. I said perfect. Okay, now because we have used, because we had used single form, single what we call if statement, so we don't need to write the block here. If you want, you can write multiple statements here. Obviously I've increased the font size, so hopefully it should be a little bit easy to read if I just reduce some of the spaces. So if this statement gets executed, let me increase the space font size so you can read it. Now basically we need to write another if else statement. So what I do is I just do the copy here, come here, paste it, and give else here. So else if your marks are not 40, so what we can do is we say greater than equal to. So it's greater than equal to 40, and let's use logical operators, and we say marks less than equal to, for example, 50, or less than just equal to 50. Okay, now no need to for 50, because greater than 50 will means we have good grades. So what now we have done here is we have used two conditions and we have used the logical conditions. Okay, let me explain this in a detail. So this is one condition, and this is the second condition. This means if your marks are greater than 40, okay, and your marks are less than 50. So we are evaluating two conditions with a logical condition. Okay, this is a logical operator. This is condition 1. This is condition 2. Inside condition 1, we have marks greater than 40. Inside condition 2, we have marks less than 50. So two conditions, and then those two conditions are again being evaluated by a logical operator. So at the same time, we are actually doing three things now. Condition 1 being evaluated, condition 2 being evaluated, and then both conditions result is being evaluated by the third conditional operator. Okay, so condition 1 result, condition second result is being evaluated by the condition third operator, which is a logical operator. Now AND means if this is true and this is true, only then this will be executed. So I can say this will be my D grade now. Okay, so this is like D grade. Okay, Control S. Let's check this. So if I come here and for example I give 42 marks, check, you get a D grade. If I give just 2 marks, fail. Okay, so this is what if else does. Using if else, using a single value, we evaluate the conditions. We created a form, we checked it. Now I just copy this if else again, come here and paste it. So what if my marks are 55? Okay, so let's just come here, and if I give 55, again I just get a D grade, which is not. In my understanding, if my marks are above 50, so I change this condition. Now it means if your marks are greater than equal to 50, so if you get a 50 marks and your marks are less than 60 in this case, so you get what we call a C grade. So if I save it, now if I get a 54 marks, oh, D grade, why D grade, why D grade, I have not saved it. Let me just save it. Okay, so this is saved, Control S. Now it should be that if I get 54 marks, I think we did not refresh it or what, 54, check it, D grade again. So there's an error here. Let's just see what's being done here. else we change it to C. So the error basically is, if it's not an error, it's something that JavaScript needs to do, is that if you come here and if else, because we have used this is condition 1 and this is condition 2, you need to put this in parentheses, otherwise JavaScript won't be able to understand it properly. So now basically means evaluate this condition and come back here and come back here and put this in parentheses as well. So evaluate this condition and evaluate this condition, and then whatever is the output of the both conditions, do the AND operator on that. So if both are true, only then this document block will be executed. If one of them is false, this will not get executed and it will automatically jump to its corresponding else. Okay, so if this if becomes true in both sides, this will execute and it will just exit the program. In either case, one of this is false, now it will go inside the if else statement. Okay, so inside this else we have another if statement. So what we do is, again, we put this inside the brackets. Okay, because in JavaScript it requires, in Java, if you're coming from there, you might not need to use these brackets because Java automatically understands the expressions in a different way. So in Java there was no such need, but you can do that. But in JavaScript you do require to separate and segregate with respect to parentheses. So now it means that it will evaluate this parenthesis first, then this parenthesis first, and then whatever the answer of these both parentheses is, it will be logically decided. Okay, so now it basically means that once your grade is greater than 50 and less than 60, your marks, your grade is basically C grade. So let's just test this, save it, go back into our code, and for example, if I give it 44, check, it's a D grade. If I give it 54, check it, it's a C grade. Okay, now it's printing thing. I think I just printed this value here, so let me just cancel this, Control S. So now we have 56 C grade. If I give it a 60, if I give it a 60, and it's just still C grade. So let's just come here and copy this if else statement. What if my marks are greater than 60? What should I do then? So I press enter, paste it, and then this statement basically actually comes under this else. So if this if is false, it will go to this else. Inside this else we have another if statement. This if is supposed to be greater than 60. If your marks are greater than 60 and less than, for example, I think 75, let's just make it 75 or 80. Let's just make it 80. Okay, you get what we call a B grade. Okay, that should do it. And then let's just do it, copy paste one more time, and in this case now we go there. Okay, so this is what we call nested if else structure behaves like. So in this case, if this if becomes false, this else is executed. Okay, inside the else there is another if statement. If this if becomes false, this else gets executed. Inside this else there is again another if. If this becomes false, then what we do is we write a general else statement and we say paste, but there is no if in this way. So a simple else, and this else should say not C grade, enter marks between 0 and 100, Control S. Okay, so in this case we had 80 marks, and so we just correct this. So if it is greater than 80 and less than, for example, 100, okay, Control S, this should solve the problem. So now if I have 2 marks, I get fail. If I give a 40 marks, I get a D grade. If I give 55, I get a C grade. If I give 67, it's a B grade. If I give 89, it's a C grade. 89 is a C grade. Why is 89 a C grade? If it's less than 80 and greater than 60, it's supposed to be B grade. Okay, we haven't changed this code here, sorry. So it's D, C, B, and it's A. So just need to change that. Again, A grade, Control S. So now it should be okay. So if I give, for example, 89, we get an A grade. Perfect. Okay, so this is how basically my marks are supposed to distribute. If you need to understand the logic of it, whatever we can do here is that I can come here, input your marks, and we can create a simple table explaining the grade. So in my understanding, it's just like if your marks are less than 40, you fail, 40 to 50, D grade, and so on and so forth. So this is simple structure of if else with the logical operators, and hopefully you understand this, and then we can create more complex programs based on if else structure as you go along. Okay, if you have any queries and problems, don't forget to leave your comment down below and I will try to guide you with that. Thank you very much for watching. See you around for the next class.